Hello, and welcome to a show between two ferns. Not to be confused with the show Between Two Ferns, which is very different because it's a comedy and it doesn't ever bring up F1. So I don't really know how you could confuse them. No, I know these aren't ferns either. Just for the joke, really. It wasn't even that good. And welcome my face to the channel as well because for the first time it is here. Now let's just get straight into it. I'm not going to be talking too much about the sprint or the sprint qualifying in this video, but all I want to say about that is that McLaren are back and I'm really interested to see what they can do against Mercedes. You know, if they had qualified a little bit better, could they have won this race? Now, moving on to qualifying, nothing really too interesting happened in Q1 or Q2, except for Oscar almost getting knocked out, but thankfully for him, he did make it through safely, said his engineer, but I don't think he thought that. Q3 got a little bit more interesting with a very mixed up grid in terms of constructor. I mean, look at the top 10. It went Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren. So weird, so strange. And then Alpine of Franco Colapinto out-qualified Gasly for the second time in a row in his qualifying sessions. And it was by such a margin that I wonder if there was a slight issue with Gasly because he was a second off of Colapinto. That's not very normal for a good driver like Gasly. But a great job by Antonelli getting pole in the end. He had the great pace that he showed last year in the sprint, so he's probably very thankful that pace carried over to these regulations as well at this circuit. It was a slightly strange situation at the end of Q3 because no one improved except for Max Verstappen, doing a great job getting his Red Bull up to P2. Now moving on to the Grand Prix, it was set up to be a great race, that actually having to move 3 hours earlier because of the lightning storms. So you would think that we would get a little bit of rain in the Grand Prix, because in the F2 session earlier that day, it was very wet. No, it was completely dry throughout the entire race. Once again, I feel like this happened in like 2022 as well, where they teased us with a little bit of rain and it just never came. It was kind of unfortunate because I was looking forward to the rain changing up the race for the entire time, and literally nothing happened. Someone who's probably glad that it didn't rain though is Kimi Antonelli, because he did a great job winning this race and beating George Russell. I want to point this out because I haven't seen anyone say this yet. Antonelli beat George Russell by 43 seconds. 43 seconds. I literally just had to check if my notes were correct. They were 43 seconds. I know I'm making this very dramatic. That's because it is. No other teammate gap was even close to being this big. Crazy stuff by Antonelli, and I know George doesn't really like this circuit, as he was out-qualified by Antonelli last year as well in both the sprint and qualifying. I think Russell will be able to bounce back next weekend in Canada, which is one of his best tracks, but will it be enough to stop the young Italian on such fine form? The spin of Max Verstappen, what a strange spin. I cannot remember the last time that I saw a Max Verstappen unforced error. I mean, it's probably like Jeddah 2021. It's so uncommon. Going into turn 1 was absolute madness. Kimi had a bad start. I'll touch on that in a second. Like 10 people locked up. It was pandemonium. The next corner, Max Verstappen spins on an unforced error. Now, speaking of mistakes, there were so many lockups into turn 17. It was absolute madness. There were some into turn 1, and I'm sure there were some others that I didn't see all around the other parts of the track. Of course, there was Hadjar's crash. I'm absolutely devastated for him because he did look like he had really good pace before he unfortunately hit the inside wall going into the chicane, and you know, it was over from there. Now, I'm going to take it back to the start really quickly because I think this is an important thing we kind of need to talk about. Andrea Kimi Antonelli has lost 20 positions total on lap 1s. this season. It has been 4 races. His starts have been abysmal. What I would say about that is that a lot of them have been car issues, but some of them haven't. And if he wants to win a world championship, I do think that you need to have good starts, or at least consistently decent starts, which he has just not been able to have. So Mercedes need to fix this, and partially Kimi as well. As soon as Hadjar's crash happened, you usually expect no other chaos. Yet, 10 seconds later, Pierre Gasly was flipping into the wall at turn 17, giving off the feeling of Baku 2023 in F2. And if you know that reference, you watch too much motorsport like me. But I do feel very bad for Pierre and for Liam because it was not even a driver error. Liam had anti-stall in the middle of the corner, I believe, and just couldn't do anything. That's 2 races in a row where we're just thankful that the driver's okay. This one wasn't because of the regulations, but it was because of another car issue. Let's hope this doesn't continue into Canada, Monaco, and the rest of the season. Now, the rest of the race was unbelievably great. The overtaking was so good. This is something I've always thought, is that Miami is a good track. It just needs cars to be good for it. I always thought that the cars were a little just too big, and just the way that the cars worked in the previous regulations just didn't really work for Miami. But we did see a flash of good racing in 2025. But the cars having so much dirty air kind of limited the amount of racing that we got. But this year, we saw the great things that the Miami Grand Prix can provide. Great racing, stress of weather, mistakes, drama, and much more. I do think that this is a good track, though maybe it shouldn't stay on the calendar for 20 more years. As the race was coming to an end, winding up for the last few laps, we saw Charles Leclerc challenging Oscar Piastri for a podium. But on the last lap, as he sat in P4, pushing to the maximum to try to get the podium, his rear came loose on the exit of turn 3, and he spun, hitting the wall, potentially giving suspension damage, hobbling to the finish line, losing so much time that he was fighting Max Verstappen, George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton, who were almost 15 seconds behind. But also, he cut many of the corners because his car was in such poor condition that he got a drive-through penalty that he couldn't obviously serve because the race had ended, so he received a 20-second penalty onto his race time, meaning his day went from bad to even worse. From P4 to 8th in 1 lap is truly an unfortunate day, and is truly a Ferrari moment. Someone he was beat by is Franco Colapinto with such a good race. The Alpine is kind of in the middle between the front runners and the midfield. His teammate was out of the race, so there was no one to really compete with, but he managed to beat Leclerc, so who cares? Such a good drive from Franco. Outqualified Gasly, as I said earlier, in both qualifying sessions this weekend. Big congratulations to Franco because he did an absolutely amazing job this weekend. Now, something I think is interesting going into the next race weekend is that the Mercedes is bringing more upgrades. They didn't bring any upgrades to Miami, along with, I think, Haas. That, of course, explains why they were so much slower compared, of course, to the first 3 races of the season. They did win the race after all. Speaking of which, Antonelli did a great job of minimizing the damage, otherwise known as extending the lead of the championship by a large margin, and he's going to hope that the Mercedes upgrades work in Canada and he can be easily winning Grand Prix once again without the pressure of a world champion behind him. Now, I think that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.